course.
There
we go.
Are we there? Are we there? Are we there?
We are.
Oh!
Seems like ages since we were
It's
live.
2021 and we're back. Oh, Finn, it's a new year. What do you think about this?
Up already.
Oh, there's nobody here yet. Simon, it's just you and us at the moment. That's okay.
Exactly. Right. There we go. The oven should be silent now.
Clicked over to, actually, was it clicked over? Oh, it is just 7
1
o'clock
past,
now.
So, you know.
All right, doggy. Well, listen, whilst we're waiting. Oh, somebody's there. Hello, whoever it is there. Good evening.
It is. I think we have to say it again. It's Thursday. It's 7
o'clock. And here we are again. Lockdown live. Yippee! Here we go again. Good evening, Penny Woods. Good evening, everybody. Great to see you. Happy New Year.
Hello, Claire.
It's got to be a happier New Year. Well, to be fair, actually, our little group here have been quite happy. Actually, you've kept us going. We kept you going, I think.
Yeah, and the point of this is to make it happier, isn't it? At the end of the day. Hi, Jane. Hi, Liz. Hi, Kerry. Oh,
hi, everybody.
Very punctual, everyone.
Yes,
well done.
But they've got nothing better to do.
Must be desperate.
we did discuss actually. Maybe we should start it earlier, or maybe we should stay at 7 o'clock. If anybody's got any strong views, just give us a shout. But as we know, I mean, ultimately, nobody's doing anything. No,
it's true. Although I've got to say, my canapes still need another 5 minutes in the oven. So earlier could be a challenge.
I know. We've got so much time on our hands that even she's managed to do the canapes.
I know. I always do. Well, I usually do them a week beforehand.
Actually, that's not true, actually. We've been very busy, actually, in January. Good evening, everybody. It's Hannibal Brown Wines. I'm Pam. This is Jude. This is Finn, our resident pooch here,
still here,
who's kept us sane throughout the lockdown and will continue to do so. We are an independent wine merchant, specialising in organic wines, and we've got a couple of fantastic wines here this evening. We are still delivering up and down the country and across Europe. However, since has happened,
don't mention the B word.
It's a little bit trickier to deliver across Europe now, involving an awful lot more paperwork, which is a real pain in the arse.
Indeed, but fortunately, I think most people here. I think most people here are within the UK, so that's all right. We can get those to Wales and Scotland without any problem whatsoever, apart from the weather, obviously.
So, what's the news? Do you know the biggest saddest thing that happened this week?
Oh.
The saddest
Make
thing.
it not too sad.
There's going to be no more Trumpisms.
Oh, that's a wonderful thing. God. John Sopel's upset, but he's the only one.
Is he? He's going to be out of a job.
I know. It'll be a boring job. But before we, carry on jabbering away, what we're going to do is ask you to open the Whitey Weiss wine, but we're going to taste that second. However, it needs a little moment to just poof off its first.
It does.
Bit of.
It does.
So open this up, and if you've got an extra glass, pour a glass so that can open up, and then we're going to be tasting the Tamar Ridge Tasmanian Sauvignon Blanc first.
And when you open up the Whitey Weiss wine, please do comment on the amazing screw cap it has. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on that. Okay, a crazy-looking wine. It is a little bit crazy, but we're going to go through it. I think you're going to enjoy it.
Yeah,
actually.
But that'll be the second one. But it is definitely benefits from having a little moment to open up. So that's why we're here to share the benefit of our experience with you.
Right. So, what are we talking about?
We're talking about Dry January. Welcome to Dry January, everyone.
January.
Cheers to Dry January. Cheers.
I love Dry January. I like Dry February, Dry March, and Dry April too. Cheers.
Yes, but do get yourself a glass of the Tasmanian. In fact, that was just the Whitey Weiss wine there. So I think we need to be tasting the same thing as everyone else.
Whilst we're doing that, we'd just like to say thank you, everybody, for participating in 2020 and the Christmas, and anybody that we did some virtual wine events for. Hope you enjoyed them. They've been a roaring success, and who'd have thought that we'd still be in this situation in January 2021, but we're still doing our virtual wine events. So if you want to book one, please do. The diary is already filling up. I don't know what I'm going to do though, because I actually just realized that I actually only managed to get my hair cut twice in 2020. Can you believe that? And now God knows when it's going to happen.
It's all in the timing. It's all in the timing. So just a few more hellos actually. So hi to Liz. I think I can't remember if I said hello already. And Nanette, and hello Jonathan.
Nanette. Did you call her Nanette?
Nanette.
Hello,
It's very
Nanette.
good to be official
The
here.
peacock.
It's very professional. And Tom as well, and Gemma. So thank you everyone for joining us. We are on Dry January, as are all of you. Good job.
Yeah.
And we have got 2 lovely dry wines to talk about.
Yeah, we've got quite a lot of wines coming in this month. Actually, it's proving a bit of a challenge for us to get new wines in at the moment, largely because we cannot get to our producers and they can't get to us. So by virtue of the postal service, we have been sort of exchanging samples. And well, the Whitey Weiss wine is a new wine this evening. The Devil's Corner Tamar Ridge Sauvignon Blanc that we're just about to taste. We have been listing it for quite some time, but over the course of the next 3 or 4 weeks, when we do all these lockdowns, and somebody mentioned we might be in lockdown until June. God.
Oh God, don't mention that. This is meant to be
But
jolly.
anyway, for the next 4 weeks, we are going to have a series of different new wines coming in. Some of them are a bit crazy. Some of them are a little bit more sort of broad brush, crowd pleasers.
Less unusual. Let's say.
But stay with it, because some of these new organic wines, they change as time goes by. So do not dismiss them within a second of actually opening them. Do not do that. That would be a disaster.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, remember that these events and, all of these tastings are to broaden your horizons.
Yeah.
And you're not going to like everything, because nobody does.
Yeah.
But we think there's some really good examples and some fun wines. Yeah. But first of all, I want to ask you a question, Pam.
Oh, yeah.
What is a dry wine? What does it mean?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me about my new jacket.
Oh, right.
Look,
a
new jacket. We got new jackets set up, everybody, for in anticipation of going out on the
First of June.
on the road to Badminton and Burley and the Hay Festival this year, and who knows, we might get there. But in the meantime, we will continue to wear them
they're kind
in
of
the
spring weight with no sleeves, so it's kind of sensible. Yeah. But anyway, back to the subject in hand.
That's what I have for Christmas.
Time is money.
Yeah.
What I wrote down a note here to say, what did you get for Christmas? Because one of the things that we're really pushing towards this year is like everyone, really focusing on sustainability and doing our little bits here and there where we can do a bit better. Yeah. So, recycle paper in the printer. We've always been refilling our printer cartridges, just little things, reusing boxes, little things to try and just be a little bit greener and do our bit. And why I wrote down, what did you get for Christmas? Was because really amusingly, for Christmas, from 5 different people, I got given soap.
Smelly.
Now, I'm taking it as a sort of environmental move away from, plastic bottles of shampoo and conditioner, etc. But when the 5th person gave me it, I did develop a slight complex. So be glad that we're all on screen and you don't have to smell me in real life.
We've actually been trying to go plastic free during January, and my goodness me, it's a right old challenge. Really but difficult. Actually, in the office, throughout the business, we are pretty much there is no plastic used. And some of you will notice actually that we try to recycle dodgy old boxes. Liz Lucy is one example. I'm sure you saw a dodgy old box on your driveway yesterday, and that is us trying to recycle.
Everybody who doesn't have to go by the courier will basically get their wine in an old beaten up old box. Yeah. And I hope you appreciate that we're just trying to reuse. Yeah. So anyway, right, moving on.
Right. Okay.
What does dry mean in the world of wine? What is that all about? Go on, in a nutshell, because not everybody knows. We do get asked sometimes.
Okay, so dry in a nutshell, we have to just talk very, very briefly about fermentation. So just 20 seconds, how does fermentation work? Many of you will have heard this, some of you might not have done, but essentially you can ferment anything that has got natural sugar in it. So oranges, tomatoes, grapes, anything that has natural fructose in it. So we're talking about grapes here. Obviously the activator, the facilitator to fermentation is yeast. There's yeast everywhere in the air. It's all over us. It's floating all over the dog. And so long as there is a yeast present, then that will essentially start attacking the grapes once the skins have broken. It will start attacking, almost like eating the natural fructose in the grape juice, and that is fermentation. Now, fermentation naturally stops at a certain point, and that could be maybe 14% of alcohol, 15%, 16%, but it will naturally stop. It does mean, though, if there is still sugar, there is still natural fructose left that hasn't fermented, then that will be retained in the wine. So where fermentation is continued and it has actually, literally the yeast has eaten up every single last morsel of fructose in the grape juice, then you are going to end up with a totally dry wine with absolute 0 degrees, zero grams of residual sugar in it. Where the yeast doesn't actually eat up, or the fermentation stops before the yeast has completed its job, and it actually leaves an element of sweetness in the wine.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of dryness, as far as legislation is concerned in the wine industry, dry means anything up to 10 grams of residual sugar in a wine.
Mm-hmm. Which is also equivalent. You might sometimes see it in a percentage, mightn't you? So that would be 1%. So 10 grams in a litre, 10 in 1,000 is 1% for you mathematicians.
So you will get different levels of dryness, but from 0 grams up to 10 grams is considered dry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Exactly. Yeah. Some countries have a few different legislative ways of measuring, of putting the marker for dry. So in Germany, a Trocken wine, Trocken is the word for dry in Germany, would be under 9 grams.
Yeah.
Much for muchness. You can't, unless you've got a very trained palate, taste the difference between 9 and 10 grams of sugar per litre. It's
impossible.
You could count the grains.
Impossible.
Yeah.
However, you will notice between these two wines, the wines that we got this evening, but feel free to compare and contrast. If you've got 2 glasses, you will notice there is a difference in the sweetness, if you like, or in the dryness between the 2 wines. One is considerably drier than the other.
Yeah, we want you to.
But they are both defined as dry.
Yeah, we want you to tell us which you think is the drier of the 2. So, because it's interesting.
In fact, test. I mean, the Devil's Corner Sauvignon Blanc from Tasmania. I mean, Sauvignon Blanc. Well, you never really get sweet Sauvignon Blanc. I'm just trying to think, unless you put it in.
Probably Echo Fools do some form of sweet Sauvignon, but
unless it's Sauternes, in which case it's blended with Semillon, but that's a totally different kettle of fish, because that's a botrytized wine. But we're not going to talk about sweet pudding wines for a moment. But generally speaking, you do not get sweet Sauvignon Blancs unless there's something gone wrong with the fermentation. And that is a point in actual fact, because fermentation, as I said, it does naturally stop at a certain level. But if the conditions are wrong, so for example, if it's too cold outside, a winemaker might have difficulty in getting his fermentation to start. Just think about your bread making, everybody. If your yeast gets too cold, then it will struggle. Equally, if the yeast gets too hot, then it will kill it. And that is a big problem, because if the fermentation stops, it's called a stuck fermentation, stuck. If it gets stuck and the yeast has been killed off, to try to get it going again is nearby impossible. And there are not very many solutions to it. And in actual fact, one solution is add a bit more yeast, see what happens, give it a stir. And if that doesn't work, we'll add a bit more yeast. And if that doesn't work, add a bit more yeast. It's as tricky as that.
So actually, I had exactly this scenario. I'm sure.
Here we go. Let's talk about bread.
Yes, it's not actually bread, but quite a lot of people who have, everyone in lockdown has had to resort to something to using up their time. And I had tried my hand at the cinnamon bun phase that seems to be striking through the world. And one of the first parts of the recipe was to sort of activate your yeast in warm milk and butter, which is melted in that milk. You meant to use unsalted butter, and I only had salted. And I'd put in all the same quantities that were meant to happen. And once you activate yeast in that sort of mixture, you usually see a lovely foamy kind of, active substance. And I knew that it wasn't foamy and frothy, and I presumed it was probably because of the sugar in the butter, or the salt in the butter, because salt definitely inhibits yeast. yeast activity a bit and the fermentation. So I chucked a bit more yeast in and just ended up with a really yeasty non-fermenting liquid.
And this is the thing though, if it happens with wine and you throw in a bit more yeast, you are going to end up with a yeasty character in your wine. So there we go. But let's not dwell on that too much, because we haven't got any stuck fermentation problems with these ones. We've got a lovely Sauvignon Blanc here though. I love this.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about Tassie. Cheers, by the way. Cheers, everybody. Happy Thursday.
I drank this at Wisley on Christmas Eve, outside, properly distanced, I'll have you know. And it was rather nice, actually.
Delicious.
One thing I have noticed, actually, is if this wine gets too cold, it does tend to shut down, and it actually loses all those sort of elegant, sort of lychee, limey sort of zestiness to it. If it's too cold, you just don't get that. So if you did take it out your fridge, let it warm up in your glass a little bit, and then a lot more will come out. And I love the fact that it's in sort of a green bottle, a sort of light bottle, because it's green. It's great.
There we go. It makes it look
like
lovely,
a Vigno Verde.
Lovely and fresh and delicious. But yeah, definitely give it a good swirl in your glass, just like any wine, red, white, rosé. We always say it. Swirl, swirl, swirl. It opens it up and releases all those aromas.
All right. So does everybody know where Tasmania is? I hope you do. Who's been to Tasmania?
Oh,
I bet Liz Lucy's been to Tasmania.
We'll find out.
Liz Lucy. I bet Keith's been to Tasmania.
The southernmost point and the southernmost wine region in Australia. In fact, I've got a map.
A map. Yeah.
Gosh, do you know, we're so out of practice of we're so out of practice.
I know. It's been a while, actually. I can't remember when the last one was. Was it November or December?
I think it was the beginning of December. There's a map. There's a map.
That looks like Australia.
Let me make it bigger. I could probably do something to make that a bit better, actually.
There we go.
Let's do that. Okay, so that is Australia and New Zealand. And down that little blob, down in the bottom of southeast of Australia, that's Tasmania.
Is that where I can start singing Hobart, Tasmania?
Oh, I wouldn't sing.
Okay.
I wouldn't sing. It's too early. Everyone's on their first glass of wine, or some of them are doing dry January.
Really important though that map actually shows an awful lot, because if you look at the latitude, Tasmania is an awful long way south of the rest of Australia, and it's on a par with the southern island of the top of the southern island of New Zealand.
The top of Tasmania is in line with Wellington.
And this is the reason why the Tasmanian wines have really sort of carved out a niche for themselves, because they cannot really be associated with any wines that come from Australia.
No, Australia, you think of sunshine in a glass, don't you?
Characteristically, they're nothing like it. These are more European in style. This is closer, as far as I'm concerned, this is closer to Loire wine, Sancerre, Pouilly-Fumé, that sort of thing, than it is to, a big, heavy duty, higher alcohol, potentially Sauvignon Blanc from South Australia.
Or even, closer to a Marlborough style. I mean, it has got this real tropical character, this wine, hasn't it?
It doesn't have the grassiness, though. It doesn't have the herbaceousness. And that's the nice thing about it. It's kind of like limey zest as opposed to we are talking general here, talking sort of herbaceousness that you can often get in New Zealand wines. Anyone who's a big fan of New Zealand Sauvignon, and we are talking generalizations here. You do tend to get this herbaceousness at the back of Sauvignon Blancs in New Zealand. Not quite as prominent as they used to be, I have to say, though. But this doesn't have that sort of green stalkiness to it.
No, it's got the real nice fruit. Sorry, I'm just trying to find the that wasn't very smoothly executed, but this is Tasmania. If you imagine it almost like the shape of a heart,
lovely,
flattish heart.
Lovely.
If you think of it as a heart, this is from the Tamar Valley, which, if you can see the map, is the green bit, which would be in the middle of the kind of cheeks of the heart, I suppose. And it follows the Tamar River, and it is the biggest wine producing region in the
diddly little Tasmania. How big is Tasmania?
Hang on a minute. Let me just. Sorry, hang on a minute. There we go. Right, Tasmania. I don't know. We usually when
smaller than Wales.
was bigger than Wales.
Bigger than
surely.
Wales.
Must be.
I don't know. Lebanon's smaller than Wales.
That's us. I think Claire was on the call. She's Welsh. She'll know.
Oh yes,
yes. There was a really funny comedy sketch. I think I can't remember who it might have been. Rod Gilbert, probably someone Welsh, and they talked about how everything is measured in the news by how many times the size of Wales. And Tasmania, I'm going to hazard a guess that it's twice the size of Wales.
Lebanon is smaller than Wales.
Smaller than Wales, yeah.
But my goodness me, do you hear about Lebanon more than Wales?
Well, I mean, they are
Wales is our next door neighbour.
I know, but poor old Lebanon, eh? Back to Tasmania. So Tasmania, the tallest points in Tasmania about 1,200 meters. So it really is quite a hilly.
He's tall.
Oh, speaking of him,
Yes.
does anybody know the name of the Dutch explorer who discovered Tasmania?
Ooh.
There you go. We know you like
I know
a bit
who
of
Hobart is.
Okay. Well, we know
It's
that
not
people
him.
like a little bit of a challenge. It's not anyone Hobart.
All right, answers on postcards, please.
but
Claire
pop it on
Clark is.
there.
I'll go with that, Jude.
Okay,
All
yeah,
right,
Claire
okay.
doesn't know.
It's
I'm
a
going to
bit of Welsh ignorance there, Claire
I'll
Clark.
look it up. Oh, look, the answers are coming flying in. We won't say anything because some people will be lagging behind.
Yeah.
So Tasmania's got about 200 wineries.
Yep.
They grow about 100 different grape varieties.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't hold back.
There's 65 little regions within Tasmania, which is quite impressive. So there's only really 3 wineries in each region on average. But
Are they allowed to add sugar to their wine? Australia?
Yes, they're New Zealand. Oh no, Australia are not.
No.
New Zealand are,
Yeah.
but Australia are not.
So going back to this whole question of fermentation and having residual sweetness in your wine, you've got to think that is the assumption that the grapes actually ripen on the vine. So imagine your green tomatoes or your red tomatoes. Green tomatoes, there's not going to be very much sweetness in there, and so if you tried to ferment a green tomato, you wouldn't get very far. It's the same with a grape.
And even if you did, it'd be pretty awful.
It's the same with a grape. And there are
liqueur.
certain places in the world where what they call chaptalization, which is literally adding Tate and Lyle, is permitted.
Mm-hmm.
Bordeaux is a perfect example. Burgundy is another example.
Yeah.
Where, because Bordeaux and Burgundy is similar climate to here, and as we know, we've had some nice weather in the last few years. But if it doesn't get warm in the summer, nothing's going to ripen. So the Bordeaux people and the Burgundians, they are permitted to add Tate and Lyle.
Which you think is an absolute.
And when I say add Tate and
aberration.
Lyle, I really do mean this. Literally, it is bags of sugar being thrown into the grape must, which is actually providing food for the yeast
Mm-hmm.
to react on, and that is what kickstarts the fermentation in those regions.
And just a word on grape must is basically juice, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it always sounds to me the must you think is all the skins and the bits and bobs. It's all musty.
It is,
but it's the juice essentially.
yeah,
Isn't it?
it's everything. It's everything without anything taken out. So what do you think of this wine?
Well,
What does everybody think of this
love
wine? I
the
think
fact-
you enjoy it, actually.
Oh, and just to go back to the who discovered Tasmania. It was Abel Tasman. Well done, everybody. As Liz rightly pointed out, he was clearly either only looking one direction because he did miss quite a large body of land near it. But yeah, Abel Tasman, and he's first spotted it about way back in the 1600s, 1650 or something. So Tasmania's as old as that.
Must be bigger than Wales then. Right, so retailing at $14.95, everybody. I just think actually this is it's lovely to have a Sauvignon Blanc from an unusual origin, which is what we try to do. As I said, I had this on Christmas Eve actually with nothing. It was a little bit cold on the day, but the other wine that actually we compared it to on the day was Henri Bourgeois' Petit Bourgeois, which is a Sauvignon Blanc from the Loire Valley. 2 very, very nice Sauvignon Blancs from 2 sort of, totally sort of separate parts of the world.
Very different to each other, I would have thought.
They are, yes, but they've both got sort of some expression there, which is just nice. There's an elegance to them. I just like the limey zest of this.
Maybe we'll just rewrite the tasting notes and we'll just say nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
everything's
Fire.
nice. Everything's nice.
So here you go. Here's another couple of facts about Tasmania.
Yes.
40% of the wine produced in Tasmania is bubbly.
Bubbles, of course it is.
So they're big on their sparkling wine, and I guess because they've got that cooler climate and a bit more acidity than in Oz mainland.
Yeah.
what you get is a much more champagne-esque kind of a style. And a quick shout out for the Piri Sparkling. If anyone hasn't tried it, it's just phenomenally good. It's the price of a standard champagne brand, 35 quid a bottle or something, but it is so good. It's like a really good vintage champagne.
Originally from the same family winemakers.
Yes, the Tamar Ridge and the Tamar Valley
family.
But so 40% sparkling, and Sauvignon Blanc, 10% of the grapes produced grown in Tasmania are Sauvignon Blanc. So what do you think the most widely grown grape variety is?
Oh, good question.
There you go. I don't know, you like a bit of trivia.
Yeah. Has anybody got any questions? So as you say, there are other brands of sugar available. Oh.
Yes, we're not sponsored.
Not taking laugh, sorry.
Luke has run out of his canapes, and I noticed that Liz said she'd made hers. Mine are having to take a break from the oven because they weren't quite ready, which is disappointing. But
what's going with this one?
Well, these are little gaillettes, like ham and cheese gaillettes, essentially.
Yeah.
So because it's got nice acidity in the wine, the cheesiness should go really well. And also sort of almost more designed for the whitey Weißwein, which we will come on to just now, because it's also the saltiness, and that's got a more savoury feel to it, hasn't it?
I think we should get everybody to move on to the other wine if you haven't already and compare and contrast. Now, the very, very important, this whitey Weißwein, isn't it a great name? Isn't it? I know an awful lot of whites as well, and an awful lot of whiteys and swities and what have you, and they really should be drinking this wine.
Someone did ask, is it a bit like sort of boat face? And it sort of has got a bit of a ring to it, hasn't it? Awful rubbish screw cap.
Shocking screw cap. Now, the most poignant thing about this wine is when you open it and you swill it around in your glass, you will smell nothing. It's actually, let me just get rid of this. When we first looked at this only a few weeks ago, we waited and waited and waited because literally it was like the wine was completely locked in, just not locked down.
And it also had a slight pong to it.
Yeah.
That we were both a bit like, ooh.
Yeah.
And sometimes really quite organic and natural wines do have that.
Yeah.
And it just needs to kind of blow off a little bit.
Yeah.
And that was the case.
Just takes a little while for everything to sort of calm down. In actual fact, actually chilling the hell out of it probably isn't a really good idea. It probably better to open up. Better to be a little bit warmer.
Yours might be cloudy also. Ours isn't, and our sample bottles haven't been, but it's not filtered, so it could quite easily be cloudy. So don't be alarmed if yours is.
Yeah.
And this is the pong. Just let the pong blow off, and then you'll have a really enjoyable glass.
Yeah. Now, first questions though, if you're tasting both wines, what we'd like to know is which one do you think is the drier of the two? Bear in mind what we said at the beginning. They are both dry wines, but which one is drier?
And they're very
dry, meaning anything from 0 grams of residual sugar in the wine to 10 grams of residual sugar in the wine. Which one is the drier of the two? It'd be interesting. So, what are the grapes, Juki?
Okay, so as it's Austrian, and as you would expect, and I wonder if it says on the label, we should maybe get people to guess, what is the main white grape grown in Austria? Okay, that's my question, because that is the main grape variety, which makes up 50% of this wine.
I just noticed somebody called White has noticed Whitey White wine. Absolutely, well done. Everything for you, Whitey.
So this is 50% of the most widely planted grape variety in Austria.
Okay.
And then the rest is made up from a grape called Müller-Thurgau.
Müller-Thurgau, yeah.
Müller-Thurgau.
Yeah.
And Welsh Riesling or
Welsh
Riesling.
Not to be confused with Riesling. It is nothing to do with Riesling.
Or Wales.
Or Wales.
Sorry, Claire.
You had to question where it comes from though. So yes, Müller-Thurgau and Welsh Riesling. Now, Müller-Thurgau has also got another name, Rivanna. Anybody's heard of it. And Rivanna, or Müller-Thurgau, was ostensibly a blend. It was created as a result of, what do you call it?
A hybrid or like a...
a fusion of Riesling and Silvaner. Although the jury's out on Silvaner.
But
either way, it is derived from the Riesling grape and one other, either Silvaner or Chasselas.
I've got a source that tells me there was a table grape, actually, not a Vitis vinifera grape.
No, who cares though?
Some experimental German dude called Dr. Thurgau. Anyway,
Dr.
very-
Müller.
Oh, was it
Dr.
Dr. Müller?
Müller.
Oh, okay,
Dr.
Thurgau's
Müller.
the place then, is it?
Right,
One or the
so
other.
Müller-Thurgau, actually, it was developed in the late 19th century, and it became so popular in Germany that it became the most prolifically grown grape variety across Germany. No longer is that the case, though, because it struggles with too much rain and too much cold climate. Riesling is a lot more sort of, what's the word? Strong, more capable of dealing with sort of
Hardy.
cooler climates, more hardy. Whereas the Müller-Thurgau doesn't cope quite so well. So there's less Müller-Thurgau produced now, but still an awful lot.
You see it a lot in this country, don't you?
Yeah, because it's good at lower climates, cooler climates, but when it gets really, really cold, not quite so good. Riesling is better.
And it's also it's quite aromatic, and it's an early ripening grape, isn't it? So in this country and in cool climates, you want grapes that will ripen early, and therefore when winter arrives in September, you've got wine you can drink. Or you can make.
Very important to swirl this around in the glass as much as possible. And I've also already noticed it's now taking on a cheesiness.
Is that because we can see the canapes?
No, this wine is like a chameleon. It continues to change. Has anybody suggested actually? Is it drier than the Devil's Corner, or is it sweeter?
No one suggested yet. I think they're probably waiting for us to drop ourselves in it by accidentally saying. But just going back, yes, Gruner Veltliner is the correct answer. Well done, everybody who thought it. Luke obviously got there first.
Yes, and we did just say that, yes, Müller-Thurgau is big in England, or used to be much bigger in England, but not quite as much these days. So
50% Gruner Veltliner, 40% Müller-Thurgau, and then 10% Welsh Riesling. Now, just going back to the Welsh Riesling.
Yes.
In no way related to Riesling, although it has as one of its parents.
Yes.
Doesn't grow in Wales. Is more sort of Eastern European kind of grape variety.
Yes.
You don't see it very often as a single variety in wines.
Wouldn't it be nice if the Welsh could claim it, though?
Yeah,
I think you probably
Riesling,
could.
Yeah.
I think not very many people have heard of Welsh Riesling, so I think they probably could.
Yeah, if you took out the C in the WELSCH, then it's theirs.
So the name of the producer here, his name is Matthias Warnung. He works totally organically. His wines are very, very natural. So it's all about a spontaneous fermentation with this wine. So literally, he picks his grapes, he puts the bunches in very, very, very large wooden barrels. And I'm talking about, 1,200 litres.
Like the ones you see in Alsace.
Huge ones, yeah. They don't impart any oak. They're completely inert. Of course, they're sort of hundreds of years old already. But the grapes go in, and literally he waits for the yeast in the atmosphere to start attacking those grapes and start off a spontaneous fermentation. Now, at that point, he has no control over it. He doesn't control the temperature. He has no idea when that fermentation is going to finish, if it will finish. But with this one, we know it has finished because it is dry. And it is not filtered. So any residue at the bottom of the bottle, you will find it will be sort of the residue of yeast, grape skins, anything. It is not filtered. It's not fined. There's no artificial spraying or anything like that in the vineyards. This is just as pure as it comes.
Natural as it gets, yeah.
And these natural wines do take on these kind of rather strange natural characteristics, which they're just a little bit different to normal wines, but they do need time. And I keep impressing this. If you just open it and take a swig out of it, you're not going to get very much out of it. But half an hour down the line, this wine is going to open up big time. In fact, I'm just going to help myself.
Yeah, you grab another.
So I just noticed this little cheesiness to it.
I'm just going to mention that actually there is truth in that, and we know because we've tried it.
And I tell the truth.
Well, perhaps sometimes tells the truth. But also, there's a little clue on the bottle somewhere. So if you have a bottle, you can have a read of the label.
Oh, I know.
And there's a little hint from the producer saying, "Let this wine breathe." But we'll go no further with that. You have to buy a bottle to see.
We shall say no more.
His delicate instructions. So I'm interested to know what people think actually of the whitey
use
rice
of
wine.
the English language by a foreigner.
I'd be interested to know what people think of the whitey rice wine because it is natural. It does have a more saltiness to it. It's a bit more savoury. It's not that really unctuous, open, fruity, tropical wine like the Tamar Ridge. The two are very different. They're totally different grape varieties, but we're tasting them because they're both really interesting.
Give it enough time, and then you start getting this peachiness. You don't get peachiness in the Devil's Corner, the Tasmanian wine. You get more limey, zesty fruit. This one, you get sort of ripe pears and things like that. But they are tempered by the fact that of its dryness and this sort of naturalness. So I did read actually. So anybody who's into sort of natural wines, natural wines is a sort of a movement, if you like, and it is to a degree. It is the equivalent of the weirdy beardy beer camera. What do you call it?
I think camera.
The weirdy beardy.
I think camera.
Sorry if anybody's sporting a beard in 2021, but they're all weird.
The real ale.
The real ale brigade. That's
camera is the real ale movement.
That's it. But these natural wines, they can get really, really natural. And in a sense, when that fermentation's taken on so much oxygen, it takes the wines almost to it gives them an orange hue. In fact, I say orange hue. They are orange. And they can become a little bit cidery. Literally taste like cider. Now, personally, they're not for me. I don't like going down that route.
I'm a bit more weedy beardy.
Yeah,
I'm a bit more weedy beardy. Less beardy, more weedy. I hope.
But I tell you what, actually, if anybody wants to see an orange wine, what we will do next week when we come back 7:00 next Thursday, we will have a picture of a fabulous orange wine.
Well, actually, if you're going to join us on our Spice Up Your Life, we have a Croatian orange wine that we're going to be tasting.
Pikentum.
So
that's right.
So you don't need to watch. You can.
No, that's 2 weeks from now.
That's on the 4th of Feb, I think. So yes, so we will go further into orange, but yeah, natural wines can be absolutely phenomenally good, and a lot of them are, but they can get down the weirdy end of the scale. I do definitely agree. Yeah. And this is not there, but it does need that time to open up. And then you've got the saltiness that goes so well with food.
So basically, anybody who likes dry wines in dry January, why wouldn't you like whitey rice wine?
Yeah, as long as you've let it.
Do you know? And the other thing is actually, if you've had a couple of glasses, it's the easiest name to remember on a bottle of wine. There's no whitey rice wine.
Yeah. Okay, I wasn't sure where you're going with that. Another really nice thing about this wine.
Yes.
11.5%.
11.5%.
So, it's perfect for dry January. It's essentially,
Something not so nice about the wine is its screw cap. I hope you noticed actually, screw cap, not a great screw cap, I have to say. But to be fair, actually, the winemaker is literally just using a closure and treating it as a closure. There's nothing expensive about this closure. It's not very pretty. It's not very nice, but it does the job.
It's made to drink young. This wine is not made to keep for any length of time.
No.
There's the low alcohol. It's not hugely acidic.
Yeah.
It's made to drink young.
Yeah.
So it doesn't bother me too much. And if you're spending less money on the screw cap and you're getting more wine in your bottle, then happy days.
Absolutely.
If you ask me.
By the way, so we have said this is 100% organic. There is no organic certification. He is not going to go and spend thousands of pounds on getting an organic certificate. He's just not going to do it. But take it from us, it is. The other thing, the very, very obvious difference between the two is the colour of the glass that these two are in, which is kind of interesting. Now, the reason dark brown glass bottles are so much better for white wine because they stop any
body buying it.
Well, yes, they do stop people buying it. You think, oh God, what's that?
What the hell is that?
Looks like a beer bottle.
Yeah.
But it's much better for the wine. It keeps the wine much better. It stops the wine from getting what they call light strike. And that potentially actually could start nasty reactions in the wine. You don't want to go down there. Having said that, Tasmania is sufficiently cool climate that it's not getting too hot in any case. So they probably think, well, we can afford to get away with a light bottle.
Yeah, it's kind of maybe giving you a little hint as to what to expect in the bottle. These guys are going tropical and kind of fresh. And and these guys are going a little bit weird.
Yeah.
But it's good.
So it's from the top northeast corner of Austria, not very far, about 45 minutes out of Vienna.
I've got a map.
Anybody who gets
I've
an
got a map.
opportunity to go to Austria,
Keep talking. I'll find the right map and then I can share.
okay,
It with people.
it's worth going to the what do you call it? The Comtal region, which is where the majority of Gruner Veltliner and it's the biggest winelands in Austria. Don't worry about it, Jude.
Okay, right. Well, anyway,
worry about
imagine Austria's a square. It's in there somewhere.
It retails at $18.95, so it's a little bit more than the Devil's Corner. But I hope you like it. I don't know. Anybody got any strong views about it?
No one mentioned yet, but however,
nobody's
Luke
mentioned
did say that the canapes we thought went well with it, which I'm glad to hear because I think it's a good combination. So I just came back. I asked the question of what do people think, bearing in mind that 40% of Tasmania's wine is produced as sparkling wine. What do you think is the main grape variety? Turns out that Simon Gilmore is an authority on all things Tasmanian. Who'd have thought? We will do a New Zealand tasting at some point, Simon. So yes, it is Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir is 43% of all the grapes grown in Tasmania are Pinot Noir. Then Chardonnay, unsurprisingly, the two main champagne grape varieties.
Yeah.
Then 10% Sauvignon Blanc, and then they're big on Pinot Gris and Riesling as well. So those similar climate varieties as you find in Austria and the sort of Germanic countries too. So not entirely surprising, but yeah, Tassie, look out for Tasmania. There, it's underrepresented and just some phenomenally good wines. And look for that Piri sparkling because it's so delicious.
And now, just to finish off, and I love this actually because this is our little nod to Dry January. Hannibal Brown style. Love it, love it. So just going back to the amount of sugar in drinks.
Oh, yeah.
So Guinness. How many grams of residual sugar does it have in Guinness?
So Guinness, if we're talking grams per litre, in the same sort of scale as we're talking these wines, is 2.
So that would be considered dry.
It's dry, 2 grams per litre. Okay. Guinness is so good for you. You can drink it through Dry January and still be doing Dry January.
Okay, and then Coca-Cola.
Pepsi
Cola
is around about 125.
125 grams, you people out there with your sweet tooth.
So that is similar. You're looking at a can of dessert wine. It's like a can of dessert wine.
Shocking.
It's like having a half pint of dessert wine.
It's an awful lot. And then milk.
So anyone who's been to one of our virtual tastings over the last 6 months will have heard us made you guess this. Yeah, milk, it has approximately 50 grams per litre of sugar. So
the answer to this, though, actually, the moral of the story, though, is that actually when you get up tomorrow morning and you've got your cornflakes, you're better to put a little shot of Whitey Weiss wine or Devil's Corner Sauvignon Blanc on your cornflakes than you are with milk. It will be much better for you.
Or equally, if you're going to do Dry January, you're better off just giving up milk for January and continue drinking wine.
Drink wine, much better for you.
Well, we've already come to this conclusion on the 21st of January. What a shame. We should have been broadcasting this at the turn of the year. Right.
So the difference between the sugar, bear in mind the two wines, just go back to it. They're both dry. They're both considered dry. So Devil's Corner, Jude, how many grams of sugar?
Has approximately 4
minute little grams of residual sugar in a whole litre. Mm-hmm. It's nothing. And what about old Whitey Weiss wine?
Whitey Weiss wine. Now, wonder what everyone else thinks. You probably won't be surprised.
Nobody suggested.
No one's got a clue. You probably won't be surprised, but the Whitey Weiss wine has got 0.1 grams of residual sugar. This is as dry as your wine can come.
0.1 grams of sugar.
750 millilitres of health in a bottle.
And yet, but the nice thing about this, though, they're both incredibly dry, and yet you get these fruity characteristics.
Yeah, they've still got lots of flavour.
Still, there's fruity characteristics, which is which
for the Whitey Weiss wine, it both doesn't have sugar and it doesn't have a huge amount of alcohol at 11.5%. So it goes to show it's got really good quality fruit. And to have a wine that's got relatively low alcohol and is not sweet, and still got lots of flavour, which can carry its weight with food.
Yeah. Because alcohol adds flavour. But if
Exactly.
you've got flavour in your wines beforehand or good ripeness in your fruit, then you don't need to add additional alcohol. You don't need too much alcohol.
Exactly.
Okay. I think
Exactly.
we're
Alice
running
has just asked a question about how does almond milk compare with your kind of general
Who
cow's
cares?
milk? Actually, I don't know, and I should have prepared for that. But I'll look and I'll let you know, Alice.
Right then, I think that's a wrap.
Yeah. So just a quick
What are we
note.
doing next week?
This time next. Thank you everyone for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed.
Lovely
it.
to see you all.
It's fun to be back.
Well, we can't see you, but you can
Yeah,
see
everyone's
us.
chatting away. It's really fun to be back.
Get a chance to wear my new jacket.
Yeah, exactly. Next week, we are continuing the Giving Things Up for January theme
Oh God, what are we giving up next week?
Veganuary. We've got a couple of vegan reds to share with you. Actually, just so you know, both these wines, I think. Well, this is certainly vegan, and I just need to check on the
They're
Tamar red.
both vegan.
So a lot of our wines are vegan
people out
anyway.
there.
But we will talk more about that next week. Whilst we taste our two lovely reds, the Saumur Champigny, which is a red from the Loire, where you usually think of white wines, and also our lovely Adaras Aldea Spanish red, which is an organic wine. They're both organic. And actually, the Saumur Champigny is biodynamic as well. And we're just going to talk a little bit more about, different ways that wines are made and what makes a wine not vegan, because at the end of the day, it is just fermented grape juice.
Oh yes, we were going to talk about that.
Well, we'll talk about that on our
We'll talk
vegan
about it next week.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in the meantime, give us a shout if you have any questions. If you want us to do another event on any particular subject, we're always open to suggestions. And just tune in next week.
Yeah. Look forward to it. And I don't know. It'd be interesting to hear what people think about, whether they've got any preferences. Please feel free to keep talking.
Send us a picture of your canapes. Post your canapé pictures on Facebook and just at Hannibal Brown Wines, and then we can see your efforts. And I'll put mine back in the oven for 5 minutes, and then I'll send you a photo of mine.
All right.
And I'm going to get my vegan canapé recipes ready for next week. They'll be on the website shortly. I'm actually just going to pull this book out. Oops. This book, Bosch, is a vegan cookbook which we sponsored the two guys who are the authors at Hay Festival a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Hannibal Brown did, of course. So I'm going to use a bit of inspiration from this and create something tomorrow and let you all know what you need to prepare.
So there you go, everybody. What have we done in January? We've gone dry January. We've given up sugar in our wine.
And we're going to go vegan next week. So we can all feel virtuous. And on that note, cheers, everybody.
Cheers, everybody.
See you next week.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. Bye, Simon.